She's brilliant, Harvard MBA, flawless in the boardroom. Strategic, respected, admired. And yet, when she demands the company fund a celebration dinner at a 5-star restaurant, her colleagues exchange silent glances. When she insists men should always pay, because that's what gentlemen do, jaws tighten. When she wonders out loud why her last 3 boyfriends all left, despite her being perfect, the contradiction becomes unbearable. You've seen this woman before. Gorgeous, intelligent, accomplished. But when it comes to love and relationships, she's completely blind. And today, I'm going to say the thing no one dares to say out loud. Beauty makes many women relationships stupid. Not because they lack brains, but because the truth was stolen from them the moment they became attractive. Society lied. Men lied. The world lied. And now, we're left with a generation of beautiful women living in a fantasy that reality refuses to honor. She doesn't realize what's happening. The deception is so consistent, so convincing, that she accepts it as truth. She builds her worldview, her understanding of men, even her strategies for love, on a foundation of lies designed to serve other people's desires, not to help her navigate reality. Without knowing, she becomes what I call a master of self-destruction, someone who consistently creates the opposite of what she truly wants, because she's been programmed with false information about how relationships actually work. It begins the moment she's 13 or 14. Yesterday, she was invisible. Just another teenager lost in homework and social hierarchies. Then puberty hits, and overnight she's no longer unseen. Men stare, boys her age, older men, even authority figures. She's suddenly handed a kind of power she cannot yet control. Here's the truth most ignore. Emotionally, she's still a child, yet she now wields influence strong enough to challenge even grown men. From that day forward, honesty dies in her world. Men quickly learn that telling her what she wants to hear keeps them close, while telling her what she needs to hear gets them pushed away. Let me break down the brutal mathematics behind this disaster. Being honest with beautiful women rarely gets a man intimacy. Being dishonest often does. This creates what I call the honesty-sex contradiction, the one thing she desperately needs. Truth is the one thing men are least incentivized to provide. It works like this. Imagine a classroom where the teacher asks, "What do you think?" but punishes every answer that doesn't match the one she already decided was correct. Students quickly learn, honesty gets you destroyed, strategic agreement gets you praised. Beautiful women unknowingly create this exact environment in every relationship. They say they value authenticity, but they reward validation. They claim to want real opinions, but they punish feedback that challenges their assumptions. The probability that an honest answer aligns with what she wants to hear? Almost zero. The probability that flattery or strategic agreement will be rewarded? Nearly 100%. Men aren't stupid. They adapt. They optimize for results, not principles. And while those lies may protect men from rejection in the short term, they create long-term catastrophes for the women receiving them. Because she builds her life and her relationships on false information, she keeps making the same self-destructive choices, and every failure is explained away with more lies. Truth becomes extinct in her world. What survives is a filtered ecosystem of half-truths and strategic deceptions. Only a rare minority of men ever tell her the truth, and they fall into 3 categories. First, men with an almost religious commitment to honesty. They value integrity more than approval, and they'll speak truth even when it costs them relationships. They're maybe 2% of the population, and they pay heavy social prices. Second, men on the autism spectrum for whom dishonesty makes no sense. For them, truth isn't optional, it's the only language they speak. They don't understand why they should twist reality just to avoid hurt feelings. Third, family, fathers, brothers, men who have no sexual agenda and a genuine long-term investment in her well-being. They can absorb her displeasure because their bond isn't based on attraction. What do these groups have in common? They're either immune to her beauty's power, or they have reasons to prioritize her growth over their own comfort. Every other man, the overwhelming majority, has powerful incentives to lie. The result? She lives in an information desert, starving for truth but drowning in validation. Imagine working under a boss with a fragile ego who punishes anyone daring to disagree. Eventually, employees stop offering constructive criticism. They smile, nod, and let the company fail quietly. That's the hidden tragedy of beauty. Not that men chase her, but that men stop telling her the truth. Meanwhile, agreement leads to access. Validation leads to approval, and strategic affirmation often leads to intimacy. The rational male response becomes simple. Say whatever I need to say to keep my place rather than risk being cast out. Not because men want to deceive maliciously, but because in her world, truth is punished and lies are rewarded. This creates what economists call moral hazard, a system where the person with power is shielded from the consequences of their bad decisions while everyone else pays the cost of enabling them. And here's why this dynamic is permanently self-destructive. Beautiful women don't just get validation sometimes. They come to expect it from every interaction. So when someone finally tells them the truth, it doesn't feel like wisdom. It feels like an attack. They get offended, defensive, and often cut ties with the man who dared break the pattern. Meanwhile, lies are consistently rewarded with positive responses, continued access, and sometimes sexual benefits. Men learn very quickly. Their role isn't to help her see reality. It's to reinforce the fantasy she's already living. This is what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, the most powerful conditioning mechanism known. Sometimes truth gets punished harshly. Sometimes it gets ignored completely. But lies almost always get rewarded. The lesson is obvious. Honesty is high risk with minimal reward. Strategic agreement is low risk with consistent payoff. Women reinforce this cycle themselves. They've already decided what answer they want to hear before they ask the question. Any disagreement is interpreted as a personal attack on their worth. Emotional blow-ups, accusations, and even relationship destruction often follow. So the rational male response becomes, just say whatever keeps the peace. Not because men are weak, but because telling the truth in this ecosystem is relationship suicide. Over years, this cycle locks into place. Beautiful women build entire models of reality based not on truth, but on decades of strategic lies from hundreds of men. Their beliefs about love, men, and human nature become completely detached from how relationships actually work. Here's the tragic contrast. Average women don't live in this echo chamber. Men have less incentive to lie to them because the potential payoff is lower. So while average women still encounter flattery and strategic communication, they also get enough doses of truth to calibrate their worldview. They learn natural consequences faster because men won't tolerate dysfunction as long when beauty isn't extraordinary compensation. Beautiful women, however, can maintain catastrophic relationship habits for decades. Why? Because men will endure absurd levels of entitlement, chaos, and dysfunction in exchange for beauty. But here's the brutal reality. Beauty cannot cover madness forever. Men may tolerate instability for a season, but not for life. And this is the climax of the tragedy. The very deception that shields her from short-term discomfort ensures long-term disaster. Because no matter how stunning she is, no man will permanently sacrifice peace, respect, and sanity just to orbit beauty. Eventually, truth catches up. She experiences what I call turning victory into defeat. having unlimited romantic options but consistently achieving poor results. Why? Because her strategy isn't built on reality, but on lies. She has every advantage, yet fails anyway, since her understanding of cause and effect is broken. Distorted models of reality always produce disaster. When your perception of relationships is false, your attempts to create love and stability will fail systematically, often creating the exact opposite of what you want. Each failed relationship doesn't correct the pattern, it reinforces it. Instead of asking, "What am I doing wrong?" she gets more strategic lies explaining why the lies didn't work. Instead of learning truth, she receives validation that her false beliefs are correct. The cycle becomes a negative feedback loop. Failure feeding failure until destruction becomes inevitable. The only consistent truth in a beautiful woman's life usually comes from her family. Strong fathers and brothers who love her enough to prioritize her long-term well-being over her short-term comfort. They can give her accountability because they don't need her approval to stay. But even then, many reject it, choosing validation over reality and sealing their own fate. They learn early how to use guilt, manipulation, or withdrawal of affection to silence even family members. When loving accountability gets rejected, she sinks deeper into what I call fantasyland thinking, a worldview completely detached from reality. The tragedy is that her best chance for truth dies at the hands of her addiction to validation. Even the people who could save her become casualties of her need to protect delusion over reality. This creates what I call a power-wisdom disaster. Beautiful women acquire massive influence over men's emotions and decisions without earning it through experience, wisdom, or character development. Unlike leaders, entrepreneurs, or public figures who build authority gradually and develop judgment along the way, she often gains her power overnight during adolescence. She can command devotion, inspire obsession, and manipulate behavior, yet she lacks the understanding to use that power constructively. The lies she receives reinforce the gap. Because manipulation works in the short term, she never develops the competencies necessary for long-term success. Truth gets punished, lies get rewarded, and the cycle conditions her into deeper deception. Over time, her influence grows while her wisdom stagnates until the system collapses under its own weight. Power without wisdom always ends in self-destruction. This conditioning system creates what I call reality distortion. Every lie she rewards teaches men that deception is safer than truth. Every truth she punishes teaches them that honesty equals relationship suicide. Over time, the loop becomes self-reinforcing until truth effectively goes extinct in her information ecosystem. The result is a self-fulfilling prophecy. She expects men to tell her what she wants to hear, not what she needs to know. That expectation shapes the behavior of men around her, ensuring she receives endless validation, but almost no real feedback. Success with beautiful women stops being about honesty and becomes entirely about strategic communication designed to manage emotions, not inform reality. This dynamic creates tragedy for both sides. Beautiful women lose access to the information necessary for good decision-making. Men sacrifice integrity and authenticity just to gain access to beauty. And relationships, instead of being built on authentic connection, get constructed on a fragile foundation of strategic deception. Importantly, this is not a sign that beautiful women are stupid. In fact, they often excel in academics, careers, or technical fields, because in those environments, feedback is honest and performance-driven. The dysfunction emerges only in areas where beauty distorts responses. It's not genetics, it's environment. It's what happens when someone acquires unearned power in a system where others are heavily incentivized not to challenge that power. Men aren't villains either. They adapt rationally to incentives that punish honesty and reward deception. That's why the cycle persists. Everyone is playing logically within a broken structure. The real tragedy is that beauty, instead of being a blessing, becomes a curse. Women get poisoned with lies, men compromise themselves for access, and society loses the truth that could create stronger relationships. The problem isn't individual character, it's the arrangement of incentives. Beautiful women aren't the authors of their own confusion. They're victims of a system that punishes honesty and rewards deception. Recognizing this is the first step toward change. For women, the escape begins with courage, choosing truth over comfort, seeking honest feedback even when it hurts, and valuing reality more than validation. For men, it requires integrity, prioritizing long-term outcomes over short-term access, telling the truth even when it risks rejection, and refusing to enable dysfunction just because enabling it feels easier. Society also carries responsibility. We must acknowledge that beauty creates unique challenges and provides structures that emphasize character development alongside appearance. Truth-telling should be rewarded, not punished. Beauty should amplify relationships, not substitute for the skills that make them thrive. The tragedy is not that beautiful women are stupid. The tragedy is that their environment systematically discourages the development of relationship intelligence. A system designed to exploit their beauty ultimately undermines their ability to use that beauty to create the love and stability they deeply want. Truth may feel dangerous in the short term, but lies are catastrophic in the long term. The women who learn this lesson early secure not only their beauty, but also their happiness.